I manifested this because I was mad at you guys because I wanted questions and then nobody sent them to me. And someone said, well, you should have put it in an email, and I did. And but we don't open emails. It's I don't open emails either, so I wouldn't have gotten it either. So I'm cutting you guys some slack. But I did a video saying, you know what? You guys didn't send any questions in. I'm upset. Then I'm only gonna ask questions that are about me. But then I realized I'm an adult and I need to just communicate my needs to my community. And so thank you to all the people that I just called up, communicated with, and you guys had questions. You sent them in. We have some good ones. So we're leaving a pig moon and we're coming into rat. Scott's going to talk to you about that. And I'm trying to get ahead of the game over here. Again, like, follow, subscribe, take courses. I just put up a cool free course training for all you people that might be have an aversion. Maybe you're too strong, you think you're too big, too advanced in age, and then on stretching, and then I'm moving into a sequence of standing and seated and push-ups for kicking and strengthening your hips and your core. That's coming up as well this month. That's all on the premium site, but I did put up a free course for you people on the freemium. Ladies and gentlemen, as we're doing this, I'm in the healing room, so I'm putting cups on my back. There you are. How you doing, man? Cheers. What you drinking?
Drinking chocolate. You got coffee?
It ain't nothing but hot chocolate to me. Drinking chocolate. I get it.
Well,
Drinking chocolate.
it's actually more like hot chocolate, because I have had drinking chocolate. To me is like actual just chocolate with water, maybe, like some ratio of chocolate and water. This one's like, the Well in Oakland.
No.
They're a pretty good spot, and they've got like what they call drinking chocolate, but it's basically a hot chocolate mix, and they've got a chai one that's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't call it chocolate?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're leaving Fire Pig
yes.
Moon, and we're going into...
Rat! We're going into a rat moon, the Earth rat moon, within a rat year. So
what rat year?
We're in the metal rat year still.
Okay,
and
metal rat.
It'll be an Earth rat moon.
Okay.
And so we had two fire moons, the fire dog and then the fire rat. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to have two Earth moons, the Earth rat and the Earth ox.
Okay.
So the transition here is kind of interesting because we're going from a rat moon in a rat year, and then we'll be going into an ox moon right before we go into an ox year.
Okay.
So there'd be some interesting symmetry here, and by and large, having two Earth moons at the end of the year is actually really auspicious from a Chinese cosmological perspective, because it's helping to ground everything. Okay. It's kind of like discovering your priorities. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of things to say about the transition in winter that we're about to go into with the rat moon. It can be pretty dynamic, but by and large, there are three words: relent, rest, and ration.
Okay. This is going to bring me to the first question. Let's just get right into the first question.
I'm down with questions. That helps me a lot.
All right. So how is this time? She's like, we're transitioning presidents. We're transitioning seasons. She's transitioning, like, kind of new degree and all these other things. And there's all these transitions going on, right? And she's like, what about this time is good for transitions? Like, we're going back into shelter in place. Like, what about this moon is
helpful to any of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, at some level, I feel like one of the blessings in disguise when it comes to COVID is that we are going to actually be the closest as we can to the prescriptions of the season. which are stop.
Mm.
You know, like the 11th moon is essentially like, yo, put the brakes on and make do with, like, we've been talking about through the autumn and then into the first moon of winter, this need for rest, everybody rest, make sure self-care and rest. Now it's kind of stop. It's no longer like a suggestion, oh, you should rest. The 11th moon is essentially like, put the brakes on, please. Like, just stop everything. Do not go about your regular activities. Like, actually don't try to keep propping up the light, so to speak. This is a really interesting, I was thinking about this morning. It's like, the 11th moon is a perfect example of the contrast between these cosmological perspectives. The one that we're in happens to be more theistic based. And so we're constantly spending our energy in the darkness trying to maintain and prop up the light. Mm-hmm. You know, we put Christmas in, I mean, that's beautiful. I love it. But like we spend so much time glorifying the light within the dark. We miss the opportunity. And the opportunity here from the cosmological perspective of the Chinese tradition is to embrace the dark. Actually turn away from the light, you know, like actually embrace that notion of rest. Because, you know, we call it here like kind of a dark night of the soul, right? Where we question everything as if that's supposed to be somehow a very negative process. Yeah. And this is the transition that we're in right now is a seasonal transition of embracing the impermanence, the uncertainty. There's another word here that I'm thinking of, inconclusiveness. You know, all of that stuff, which is very, it's up right now seasonally. Right. It's supposed to be, and so being in touch with that process, being willing to go into that process, there isn't really a bottom to it, you know. So it's just going into the yin. Going into the yin of the season is basically how we nourish ourselves. We recover some sense of potential for renewal, and we actually set ourselves up to be able to better handle the opportunities of spring when they come around. So if we want to talk from a practical perspective, knowing how to rest, knowing how to be sensitive, knowing how to be attuned to our environment, which is essentially what's being really required of us. If you're in a position of survival, you have to be very, very attuned to your environment, right? And this is the opportunity. Maybe we're not starving. Some people need to really ration in this really challenging time. But basically, if we're attuned to our environment, that attenuation is actually something we can use all year long. But if we're just spending our time, you know, burning our cheek in this time to maintain activities that we do more naturally during the spring and summer, you know, we're cutting our life short.
Okay, I got a thing. When you talk about rationing and you talk about this stuff, this is a lot of the meditations that I've had. I might have talked to you yesterday when I was trying to sort shit out. My meditations, these little voices come in my head. Don't want to talk too much about that. But they're always saying,
"Welcome to being a demon."
Do you ever see Dr. Katz, the old cartoon?
Oh yeah, yeah.
There's that comedian. He's like, I drink to stop the voice in my head, and the voice in my head has a stutter, and then it just flashes back to him just sitting there, and you hear this, kill your anyways, but this voice is telling me to. I see patterns, and these patterns are people are focusing on too many big things.
Yes,
save the world,
absolutely.
Climate change, solve this and solve that, and big. And the most common remedy to that I always tell people is back to that rationing. It's like you have an extra $500 in your pocket. Don't go on a $1,500 trip to Burning Man or Bali, or spend $200 or $300 and buy a good blender to where you can use it all the time, right? Put little and so the word for this past month for me was really going back into the trivial, right? It's like all of these little trivial things that I've been grateful for my whole life. When the shelter in place came around, it made it a point to where I was focusing on, little things. Like I wanted my cameras, but it's like I have a purpose behind all the trivial things that I'm doing, right? So yeah, I'm and these things bring tiny little joys in my life all the time.
Totally.
So then when I'm inside, it's this joy. Like
You have a whole world
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
explore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been the same way, man. Like
Yeah.
I really enjoy my living space. This year in particular has been really strong. Just like all the little things that you're surrounded by that enrich your life. Like
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so that was our first question. Do you feel that you gave enough?
Well,
on that?
I mean, well, considering that, like I think the things we're facing right now in this society, these sorts of transitions that she's remarking, or the questions are remarking on,
Okay.
They're based on these kinds of assumptions that we have about who we are in this
Okay.
time, during this time, right? So I thought it was really interesting to me that we actually have elections in the autumn. It's like it's not a very challenging time in the sense that, like, if you did it in the spring, you might have like very different results, where people are like, let's make something new, like in the autumn, we're retreating. And so expressions of loyalty, I've always voted Republican, will have more of a natural capacity to come forward. So,
Yeah.
Like that we actually make these decisions here, and that we're going through this very difficult time, mostly due to our own behavior and lack of leadership. It's more of the same, so thinking about the transition into a new administration, it will be the success of that administration at this particular point in time will be given by its attention to the little things, and the little things that really, really matter, attention to detail, and not just attention to detail, but what the details that you're addressing actually said about the overall arc of what it's important, so that we make an appointment of a certain kind for a certain part of the administration actually gives a lot of messages. And we see that right now. We see that, like, he's, wants to nominate this person for this position, actually says that these are the kinds of priorities of the administration. That's very natural. It's also very rat. So I expect to be a lot more focus on that about and sort of more forward looking, for at least for the number of people in the society that are forward looking. In some ways, our misbehavior and now this kind of suffocation of our movements on a broader societal level is more of the same that we've been dealing with all year long. So that it was actually, intensified under the rat, I think is actually basically is a sign of two things. First, our incapacity to actually listen to the overall message that's available in the rat, but then also, like that it's double rat means it's even more intense, so we kind of made this nest. This is where we're at.
How about the fact that it's like the fire pig, it's when you're saying it's telling us to stop, it's telling us to transition. I think one of the transitions might be like, you're talking about, we've tribed out, we've gone to this side, we've gone to this side, and maybe the transition is to just stop that too. Like, I'm not telling anyone what to do, but like, I mean, I always look at the idea of, we everything's yin and yang, and as an artist, if I would have killed to have a very conservative person running my finances, and we can always benefit from seeing all these sides. And when we talk about empathy and all these other things, empathizing is being able to see other people's sides, even if you disagree with them. And that's been said over and over and over again. But the transition, I think, needs to be actually transitioning all of these quotes and ideas and idealism and all this powerful woke speak, but transition it into stress, into nature, into the uncontrollable. Because, I say no offense to anyone, but I totally love offending people because their offense is that weakness that's coming out of them of not being able to see.
It's their trigger.
Yeah, it's like shove your trigger down, up your ass. I don't care. So the idea is your trigger's not important. You're not important. Get out there and put it under stress and realize like we train in these idealistic places to have the perfect. Grab the perfect wrist and see the perfect piece of food come out of the oven and all these things because we're training to see what it's like in a perfect scenario. Yep. So when we get it out into the chaos that is nature, like we're not triggered. We know what it's supposed to look like, and we're trying to get it as close to that as possible in the uncontrollable environment. And it's okay.
Well, we have an appetite in this culture that's been cultivated over the last 100 years. For an ideal setup, like idealistically. I mean, it's in every piece of marketing that we're exposed to. It's part of our consumer culture, and it's part of like all the different aspects of of how we consider ourselves. I was actually having this conversation with a client and a friend the other day about like the difference between, say, Western astrology and the practice that I do. I don't have a lot of familiarity with Western astrology, but every time I read it, I find myself getting very stressed. Like I'm like, whoa, like, like a feeling kind of these like crazy limitations about like who I am and what I'm capable of and who's compatible with me, etc. And what I thought was kind of interesting about that is that the primary difference between the type of astrology that I practice and Western astrology is that Western astrology makes the assumption that you have a lasting personality, that it's fairly immutable. It's kind of almost like a soul, and it's pretty rigid, and it actually exists, and you have one. Whereas I think that we don't make that assumption, and either in the Tongshu or in Zowe-doshu, we're not really actually talking about something that you fundamentally are, and that's one of the major misses between the two traditions.
Yeah, one of the things that it's like I was talking to someone, we were talking about kindness and being gentle and all this other stuff, and I remember I would go into these places that were very, it's like around a bunch of groomed victims, and that's what our culture does. We realize that we're so. We get so much more attention by proving that we've been victimized, and I'm fine. It's like I mean, I've been working with people in missing persons and all stuff. Like, trust me, there are people that go through some shit.
Are victimized, yeah, for sure.
But the thing about it is, like, when we talk about, like, yes, we're all carrying a story, and we always talk about being gentle. And I'm like, yeah, be gentle. Stop attacking me that I don't know what story you're carrying, and be gentle by carrying your story. Like, carry your story. Don't carry it at me. You know what I mean? And I think this is that transition of knowing that, like, oh yeah, I do have my story, and I'm putting up some stories of I've been asked to do some consultation with the property managers of this area because I cleaned out the street by just walking out to the homeless guys and just asking them to leave, But
you developed a relationship.
Yeah,
but they didn't just know you as they knew you as the person who lived nearby.
Yeah, they've messed their shoulders up by doing weird shit and trying to keep some meth addict off them at night, and I helped them fix their shoulders, and I have their it's like there was a guy who has truck I didn't see for a while, which so I have his number and I call him. I'm like, hey man, are you okay? Right? This is why the street cleared out. 50 people moved off my street and then moved their entire encampment somewhere else in one night because I just asked them to. But the idea is there is no right or wrong. I'm totally okay with it. I mean, I respect them enough to say, look, you want to do meth? And the guy, I just saw the guy's truck. It's
today?
It's amazing. It's amazing. He basically, it used to be this like big truck and has all these like subwoofers in the back and black painted wheels, and the windows are even black. Almost they look like they're painted black. So I saw it yesterday, and he's been kind of going down the meth hole for a little while. He painted it, looks like with a paint roller, like with house paint. The whole truck, wheels, sides of the tires, the windows, everything. It's just painted kind of purple. He just painted the whole thing purple. I'm like, so that's where you've been. You've been homemaking.
Yeah.
So anyways, so there's that. But that being said, it is this time to like really, 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 it's now seeing that we now are not only carrying our story, but people have gone inside and they've lived in that story for a little while. And then Pig Moon showed up and everyone just like, freak flag flying, you know what I mean? And going out.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's like everyone just.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I mean the Pig Moon itself. That's why what we talked about last time is it sex and death at the same time.
Yeah.
Like this is the kind of sensuousness of living, and especially as a fire Pig Moon, definitely much more activated. You might even think that you're invulnerable because there's just this vitality, sort of a rediscovery of the sensation of vitality.
Yeah.
But you're also still within this beginning time of winter, which is a sinking time. So that tells you that like some of our motivations, even our most or joyfulness, all of these things are sort of interconnected with deeper parts, not just as you as an individual, but all the ancestral, matriarchal, particularly connections that you have. I mean, the solidity of your being, your individual psyche, persona, whatever it is you want to call it, you should be able to detect exactly how porous and loose that is during this time. So you may see people being like, I just let loose, and like, whatever their motivations are, they might not even be able to put a finger on it because maybe they haven't developed the capacity to have that kind of level of self-reflection in their lives. You always, your ability to get out of any particular moon is also directly related to not just what's being offered, but your capacity to digest it. So like your own skills of self-reflection and your own skills of self-cultivation, whether it be through a tradition or a practice or just be, sitting in a room and listening to the Moody Blues or something, I don't know. And like, just like, taking a bunch of drugs, like, all of these things they speak to a fundamental appetite. It's a fundamental appetite of humanity to want to understand what is this sensory organ, this incarnation like really worth? What's it all about?
Yeah. And
so these are kinds of experiences I think they're much more available in the Pig Moon. But it also means that you have a variety of different responses that come out of that. So many different responses. But the point of all this is to definitely explore this kind of sensuousness and come to a place of rest, come to a place of even dissolution, and seeing the interplay, between life and death in that way. It's going to continue, but basically it's much more constrictive. It's much more qualified. Becomes much more practical, especially under an Earth Rat Moon. Do I really have the resources? Might be much more conservative. But we should have been playing this game all along.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I say it's rationing now. It's about rationing, relent, meaning like, stop. Just stop. And like relent, stop, rest, and ration. Because at this point in time, just as a quick snapshot, the main feature within the Earth Rat Moon will be solstice. Will be basically what I might call like running along the bottom of the pool. So we sink, jog over, go down, jog over, go down, and then eventually we make it to some kind of semblance of the bottom of the pool. There really isn't one. But like you can imagine, there's a period in time in which everything kind of tends to level off. And Yang is in a place of rebirth. But we're talking about like a glowing, even like all the Qigong talks about the glowing ember, right? Inside your physiology, inside your body. And the image is like the old woman, which is yin, big yin. Giving birth to Yang, right? Like this is the time. In order for that to actually happen, like you actually need to guard that. You need to conserve that. That's why they say, no sweating during this time, warm the body, loosen up, because stagnation is a thing. But don't don't go out there and run 10 miles in the hills and sweat. Like you need that chi, you need that energy.
Yeah.
And so this is the time to, like, again, relent. Don't go about your usual business. Actually do everything you can to say, oh, yeah, I'll catch you next month, or like just pull back, delay. I mean, it will work better if you do.
What is the Mitch Hedberg joke? Remember?
No,
He's
you
like,
tell me.
I'm following your dreams. He's like, this is great wisdom right now for this. It's like, he's like, I'm sick of following my dreams. It's basically like, stop following your dreams. He goes, just ask them where they're going and catch up with them later.
Catch up with them later. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, this is there's a reimagining. Yeah, Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah, big Mitch Hedberg. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting time in the interaction between yang and yin, because there's a lot of imagining, kind of like fireflies in a field sort of experience, where you might, in this kind of vast potential of yin, because that's what yin is. It's potential. It's the wide open world, right? Mm-hmm. It is the is resource, unshaped. It is just this nurturance of the fact that you can get up and there's clean water and clean air. Like, these things are all potential, not qualified or directed, going in any particular direction. These are just this kind of wealth that we inherit. Yeah. Right? This is yin. This is so embracing that sense of nurturance without trying to direct it. That is the invitation of the 11th moon. And if we can't do that, then we're not very well, then we're not as prepared as we could be for managing spring, when it's all cacophonous and going every particular direction. If you can't sit still, if you can't be in stillness, then you're just going to get thrown around, when that time comes around. So from a practical perspective, the rat encourages you to be in the place of sensitivity to your environment, out of a place of survival. The skill set that you actually cultivate becomes extremely powerful through the seasons. It's like soft power always works. Yeah. You know what I mean? Hard power only works, a tenth of the time, really. But soft power works like all year long. So it's like really cultivating that sense of soft power, which is timing, diplomacy, things like that.
Yeah, it's speaking of soft, it's like there's a really cool rule for like soft and hard in falling. I was just having a conversation with one of these talks, and the idea is understanding that when you're in the dojo, you're on soft ground, you're on pads, right? So your body can be hard. And this is what I was talking about, like the transition is where we have all these idealistic perspectives, and they're very hard. They're very you can have a hard body in the dojo because you're going to fall on a pad, right? So you can be hard. But they always say the harder the ground, the softer the body needs to be, right? Like, so when you move outside and you move to the unknown, you have to soften up, right? Yeah. And that's why when you watch modern dancers, they're falling on wood and cement sometimes, and they just like, they make no sound. It's like, whoa, and they're soft. But when you look at MMA, they're hard as nails, and these guys, but they're falling on a pad. It's a 2-inch thick pad. That's true. And that's why. I mean, I've been in that octagon, stepped on that pad, and I've been, and I was the chef for the like WWF, or WCW, Hulk Hogan, all those guys. That's a pad. And they're hard as rocks, and they're amazing, and they're in an idealistic, controlled environment. Mm-hmm. And and I just I think that is very important to understand, that we cultivate these things that way. All right, new question. By the way, big props to the people that send in questions. Big props.
Thank you. That really helps.
Here we go. This next one, and it's really cool because it's like from these amazing smart women. And like, I had a song a long time ago that says, "I want to be if I die young, I want to be eaten by smart chicks." And by the way, I've never recorded that song, nor I think admitted to writing it. Okay, let's see. For tomorrow, ask Scott, with it being double rat, what is the most beneficial use of the meticulous editing energy so we aren't over analyzing our thoughts over and over? Also, How can double rat allow for us to utilize this deep winter yin energy for nourishment rather than overdoing? You kind of answered that one already, but yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how can we
I mean,
use
the
that?
over analysis is to be expected.
Okay.
Like, don't think that you're not going to overanalyze. I mean,
Okay.
one of the things that I was thinking about actually before that I asked that question is that I think is kind of a hopeful message that comes out of the 11th moon
Okay.
is that if we've been steady editing, right, all year long, which is through all the difficulty and just really working on the reduction of excess, right? Because that was the original sort of theme of the metal rat year, is like, how are we reducing our excess as a response to the previous year and then maybe years of excess, right? So if we're actually been embracing this kind of editing position, there's some priorities underneath that.
Okay.
They have been working all year long. We've been seeing them come forward in either people's protests, in your own particular edits in life, the things that are actually really important to you. What can you actually do without when you're oppressed, right? Under nature, like what do you say? Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so we've all been doing this process, and I think that the opportunity in the 11th moon is that you maybe find ground. You actually really do find what actually really matters. So I expect that there will be a lot of like really strong New Year's resolutions.
Okay.
This year. But like the sort of like the big takeaways of the year, like you may actually really find those things, and you could find them comforting because they are a place where I understand now what I'm dedicated to. I understand now what my legacy in this world is. Like, what do I really want to put my energy into? These are good questions to ask this moon.
Yeah.
Because these are invitations for that kind of spark of yang qi, right? The baby kicks, that wants to do these kinds of things. I mean, we are a long way away, like even maybe towards the end of the rat moon, which would be like the second week of January. There might be some preliminary kind of movements to like how you want to initiate activity in the metal ox year, but like pretty much don't get ahead of yourself the entire moon. You really want to actually like err on the side of caution. Don't jump. Don't make any plans. Should be preliminary. Don't seek advantage. Like really just, know that you really solidify, what it is you want your commitments to be connected to. And so that's those sorts of explorations without that caution kind of put out there. I think the rat moon is a good time to, really understand like why are you here? Like if you really want to ask that question, what do you want to contribute? If these aren't sorts of things that you've been sitting with this year, which I imagine for most people they are, then like how do you want to actually put that into effect? I think there's a good potential for that this moon, and it's an important thing to engage. That's what I would recommend people to do. Like, hey, we got a new year coming up, metal ox year. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of strength and vitality. Not everybody's going to benefit from the situation, but like if you were asked, like, what do you really want to put your shoulder into? What do you really want to commit yourself to? And not ever question it. Like if you have that within you to actually look for those sorts of things, then I think the 11th moon would be a good time to do that. And then secondly, if you do find those things, don't tell anybody. Don't post it. Don't tell anybody, because you're a long way from spring and the situation's going to change, so like it's really important to like if you want to share it with your close people, like obviously in that kind of collaborative sort of way, but like don't immediately make it public, like what your purpose in life is. Actually really shelter that thing. It's very important.
Well, that goes back to editing. So, like, if you're editing a book or you're editing a record or something like that, you're gonna play it, right? You're gonna listen to it. Then you're going to probably edit the way you actually performed it. Then you're gonna probably re-perform it a couple more times. And then when you're done with that, you're gonna be stoked. But then you want to like put it in your car. You want to drive around with it. Then you want to go to sleep. And then you want to wake up and you want to listen to it again. And then you're gonna edit it a couple more times. And then And then a lot of times it's really funny. You might edit the hell out of it and then realize the first demo that you made was the real one, and then that's the one you keep because it was
exactly.
honest. Or,
Right.
but you want to be able to get enough space from your ideas again and put it into the uncontrollable. Watch someone watch it, like, put it, like play it in a room and while you're going about your life, all these other things before you share it, before you put it out, before you release it. And
Right.
yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, there would be a lot of, it's not to say that, like, and I'm not trying to put pressure on people to say, figure out your life now, like in the 11th moon, because you might just spend a lot of time deconstructing and analyzing the things you feel like you've lost. That's a very strong likelihood for most of us,
Right.
in the 11th moon to be like, yeah, just like, just in that kind of place of lamentation. That's fine. That's absolutely fine, because
Right.
we are in that, like, we talked about the 10th moon in the pig being this kind of almost like mating dance between, life and death, or sex and death, and these experiences. And perhaps there'd be a lot of COVID babies in the summer. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But but in this moon, in the 11th moon of the rat, it's mostly death.
Yeah.
Like, it's mostly just the complete stillness and the complete resolution, because again, yin technically will be peaking, during like a good half of this moon, would be peaking and plateauing, like running along the bottom of the pool. So, like, trying to assume that you can, even if you do collect jewels,
Mm-hmm.
in the bottom here, and you do really get a sense of what you're really, really invested in, you might actually, it might be a handful of jewels surrounded by darkness. Like, it's a mixed bag, and that's to be expected, but it's like really what you take out of that period of darkness. And you may drop some things along the way, like, you got to expect that everything's going to change, and come to standstill. So if you come out of this with a couple major priorities in your life, like, good for you. But I think a lot of people will also continue to be incredibly stressed out, because that's our culture. To appreciate the strength, like, we're very interested in what's strenuous, because what's strenuous is somehow important. But as I like to say, like, drama doesn't mean it's, I can't remember the exact phrase. It doesn't make it important just because it's loud.
There's a thing where I was writing this meme the other day, and I was like, one of the transitions I think that we have moved into was the transition of intention being such an important currency.
Okay.
But what I would love for people to start asking themselves is this: are people watching you because you are giving them value and you are actually entertaining them and they want to see you succeed, or are they watching you because you're a spectacle, right? I remember having to ask this of my band. Like, when you first met me, my band, it was we were coming to the end of being a spectacle, right? And I remember, like, I would play in knee pads, and by the end of the shows, I'd be like bloody. I'd be this bloody mess, and I was in pain all the time, and because I was just swollen after shows. And I remember one day, like, hearing those recordings, and I was like, oh shit, we're just a spectacle. No one would want to listen to this. So when 9/11 hit, we went back out on tour, and I played, and then I said, you know what, screw this. And I played the first few songs of every show sitting down and not being a spectacle. And I was like, I want to be musical now. I want to offer something. I want to, like, actually try to do well, but still keep the flow. And because I have the spectacle down, and this is something really important right now in that editing world of being like, like, for example, Instagram Reels has come out, and I always say Instagram Reels should just be mediocre people in bikinis or shirtless, right? It's like, whenever we aren't cultivating it on a level, then what do we do? I've watched people on stage, like, no one's watching, so they'll just take their shirt off, and next thing you know, they become a spectacle. They start going, look at me, putting out this spectacle might be saying, I want to be seen as this thing, but now I have to keep creating these train wrecks and these these maniacal like cries for help in order to get the attention that I desire, and maybe that just means you need community around you or something. I don't know. It's like it's not up for me to decide.
Yeah.
But that's a good editing process as well. Is like how deep is my desire, and is that desire coming from a real place, or is it just coming from what I think I need?
Yeah, spectacle sells,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So that's what we see for the most part,
Yeah.
because we're in a consumeristic based,
Yeah.
we're in a marketplace culture, and that's
Yeah.
that's so. I mean, I think most of the things that happen in that space only reach a certain level of depth.
Yeah,
Is what
yeah.
obviously is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's don't bore
Yeah.
us, get to the chorus kind of shit. But
Right. But like this opportunity, I mean, in the 11th moon, like I find myself wanting to just urge that, like, yeah, surface level understandings, like, they're great and they'll be celebrated in a rat moon and in a rat year, like, except for, a little bit of the metal rat is kind of a little bit critical of those things.
yeah.
So we may have like some continued editing in that regard, and I think it's just about like, if you've got doubts, go back to stillness. And
Yeah.
if you have doubts, don't do it. That's definitely the bottom line. If you're not sure about it, save it.
Yeah.
Save it. Don't show anybody. Or only show your handful of people. I think there's a potential here for cultivating our own awareness of our legacy, but conservation, personal conservation, austerity is actually really what's required. Then you think about like starving artists, that's just willing to give everything to their art, right? It's that kind of place where I need to go without in order to really understand what matters. That's kind of a virtue in this time, and it's important to like, say no to everything you can.
All right.
Everything possible, just say, no, I don't think so. I'll wait.
Okay, so we've answered a couple questions. Now we're going to get to the portion that is sponsored by me.
Oh, yes.
Me. And so Total BS Wellness and all these courses and all this other stuff, right? So I got to get into my little questions, kind of lightning round kind of stuff.
Okay, lightning round. All right.
Before we do this, I want to tell everyone to at least take a stillness course, or the kettlebell yoga course has been selling ever since Tommy did his thing, and I'm using him.
So good.
Yeah, he's such a sweetheart. And then Shereel, I just did that talk with Shereel on herbalism, and I'm going to try to get her to do a course on herbalism. That's all going up on premium.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
And then the freemium stuff is these talks, astrology, stuff like that, the long form stuff. But if people want to take courses, sign up. And, I'm giving them 2 weeks free, so they could go on there and figure it out if they want it. Because I'm sick of explaining what I do.
Just go see it.
Yeah, someone, Shereel has been doing Qigong over at the Shaolin Center for a long time. And she's like, wow, I've never seen it like this. And, even like the Shaolin guys do my stuff. And so that's fun. Anyways, so I'm going to move on from that. So take a course, kick some ass. And it's more than you think. Like when people think it's the 8-piece brocade, they think it's like one workout. No, it's like 50 videos teaching you all these different ways to do it. So I overdo everything. You know me.
Yeah. You put so much work into what you do. It's beyond valuable.
Yeah.
It's a legacy.
Thank you. That being said, first, buried or married?
Buried or married? Most everybody's buried.
Oh,
You're not doing weddings.
Okay.
So I mean, like, I don't think that's not fair.
Yeah.
It's all buried. Yeah, it's all buried. Period.
Okay. This next question, I know it's all about me, but I'm speaking for the people. Should people be hiking?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I think the kind of nourishment. I mean, obviously, from a chi perspective, limiting our exertions is best. But I think that all of that has to do with your own particular personal practice.
Okay.
I think that if, for those people who are like looking to get back in shape or something like that, or get a jump on their New Year's resolutions or something, then don't. You
Yeah.
know, like, just stop. Like, eat well, rest, sleep. Pretty much everybody in this world, in the United States in particular, it has a major sleep debt that they could probably cash in on. You know, so like,
Yeah.
as much as you can, rest.
I just did the stillness course with Daniel Wu, and yeah, it's funny just watching his color change because he's a movie star. He's like just constantly going, and we just like,
Yeah.
and he's been driving the Ferrari race circuit, and he's just been flying. And then we just did
He's a madman.
stillness, and we did slow long holds of Yama, and he just like turned different colors to a point where he just like sits down. And he's like, oh my god.
I feel so
And
much better.
I was like, yeah, human being, not human doing. Be, don't do. Be,
Sure.
don't do. All right.
Yeah.
You mentioned a lot of times, and I know everyone's wondering this. You mentioned consult the oracle.
Yeah.
So how does one get an oracle? And like, is it a good Christmas idea?
Good. Yeah. Get an oracle for Christmas.
Yeah. How does one go about getting an oracle?
So there's two in the Tongshu. There is two types of consultations that I mentioned quite a lot. One
Okay.
is just divination.
Okay.
Divination practice can be any culture in particular. Like there's tarot cards. There's all kinds of different practices worldwide for divination. It is a major part of human activity.
Okay.
Historically speaking and currently. And then consult the oracle specifically refers to the Zhou-yi. And the Zhou-yi is because in the Tongshu, one of the Tongshu's indicators are hexagrams from the Zhou-yi. Many people understand this book as the I Ching.
Okay,
or the Book of Changes.
So when you say consult the oracle, it's kind of like me saying, take my stillness course. Because I think people should consult with you. People should, like, go, hey, man, I want to travel by sea, but should I be in the wilderness?
Yeah. Don't do it.
Yeah. Like, because for some reason you keep telling us to not travel by sea.
Part of that, at the end of every writing offering that I do, there's the blanket sort of auspices that I provide that are speaking to specifically one important indicator in the Tongshu.
Okay.
And so I provide those, and then so when I say no travel by sea, that's a nod to the ancient, that sort of thing. That like they would say, don't travel on the road or you'd be robbed, things like that.
Yeah.
And that's old school Tongshu. And so I just like putting that out there. But consult the oracle is actually about a particular book, the Zhou-yi, and I would refer people to my teacher Ming's translation of that book. I would refer people to go support the Da Yuan Circle website to buy his translation of the Zhou-yi because, like, hands down, I've looked at dozens of translations of the I Ching. I could go on about like how confusing that book has been for me in life.
Yeah.
But his translation, his approach to that particular work is like easy to understand, easy to access, easy to relate to. And so when it says consult the oracle, it means that's a good day. It's not mandatory, but it's like that's a good day to like, and I usually say consult the oracle in relationship to something if you read it. So if that question comes up for you, like, no, I do feel that question, like I will consult the oracle, then I suggest buying his book. Or you can find it, even used at Moe's here in Berkeley, if you can get in there. I don't even know if it's open. But like that translation of that book is phenomenal, as well as his translation of the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And they're actually sold as a set on the website. Just saying.
Say the website name again.
DAUNYUAN circle.org, I think.
I'm just kidding.
Yes. So it's Da Yuan Circle. That was the organization that he founded. And it's his websites. It's got, recordings of his lectures that he gave, courses and things, and books that he actually offers. I mean, it's I love doing what I'm doing, but I wouldn't be doing this without him,
Yeah.
And so it's very important. He left the legacy. And so we can all partake in that legacy. And if you're going to get just one thing from Da Yuan Circle, that compendium. You can get it as a set of the Zhou Yi and the Dao De Jing is hands down the best translation you can get. The most accessible, actually makes it very much relatable to you, rather than some kind of, I don't know, like the Dao De Jing, works of Lao Tzu, and the I Ching are definitely are two works that are so pivotal to human thought, and they're the most abused by Western thinking. That, and I'll throw in Zhuangzi. Like everybody projects all kinds of cosmological nonsense into what these thinkers were doing, and I think it's really important to. I mean, Ming did a really good job just stripping that stuff away.
It's kind of like and then Western thought was like, man, this stuff is too complex. We're sick of trying to misinterpret this. Let's just go back to that Jesus guy. Let's misinterpret that dude.
Even that's the thing. They made it. It's actually, the German mystics made it more complex. Mm-hmm. They projected all kinds of crazy mysticism and stuff into those texts, and that's not at all what they were made for.
That reminds me of like when for example, I'll watch some. It reminds me like when jazz musicians start talking about music, and then they just keep going and making it more complex, and they're almost flexing on how much they know about music as opposed to actually like feeling it. And this happens a lot with like kung fu people. They'll stand around, you're doing your qigong, and then they start going, actually this, and you're like, oh yeah, you've never actually integrated it. You've never softened and gone and taken it out into the uncontrolled, because all of this work is sort of a language around feeling. And all of this work is a language around stripping down stories and all these things and just getting out there and feeling. And yes, it is very deep, but like the deepest things is a single point oftentimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel like all of these traditions, the wisdom sciences, and the wisdom traditions of China, and the ones that I hold, the martial arts, all of these things should be centering around your experience.
Yeah.
Period. Like it's only about, I mean, the Tongshu, the invitations that I do with the Tongshu is just to invite people to pay attention to their experience, you know, and also with fate calculation, doing work with people, Zoidoshu. It's like, if I'm not telling you about your life, like what you perceive is like, oh yeah, that is my truth. If those moments aren't happening, if an astrologer is doing a work for you and they're trying to persuade you of something that you don't experience about yourself, they're probably trying to sell you something. Like it is possible that we are very powerful human beings. We can be incredibly Hippocratic, like we can engage in quite a lot of hypocrisy. Lying to ourselves is one of the most fundamental things that we do. I think that when we're honest with ourselves, there's aspects of our being that are self-evident. Mm-hmm. And if you're working with somebody who's doing any kind of fate calculation, they should meet you there.
Yeah, when I would talk to high school kids, and I always be like, some important rules are always know where home is and don't shit yourself. And then what I realized is they actually weren't Southern, so they don't understand don't shit yourself is another word for don't fool yourself. But like technically, don't shit yourself is also a really good rule too. So I was like, that's legit. You guys, don't shit yourself. And
don't shit yourself.
But I would always be like, don't shit yourself or don't fool yourself, because when we are doing a lot of this work, we are standing there, and so the triggers, like the trigger to see when you are fooling yourself is when we're justifying something, or when there's such a high, and because one of the ways that we manipulate people is charging them a high price point on a very simple idea, but once I charge you that high price point, you'll double down on all your convictions. That's how people stay in cults. You know what I mean? It's like I gave my life savings to this guy, and then, of course,
I better not go anywhere.
I believe them no matter what goes around what they're saying. Yeah. So I think that's important. All right, let's move on. I would love to, and I would also tell people, like, definitely get a reading. I'm actually going to get a reading from you either today or tomorrow, whenever. Yeah. Tomorrow. Let's see. So, real quick, we have someone, it's total downer. I have a lot of death in my life. Is it a good time for death?
Yes.
Go.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes or no? Yeah. No.
Actually, yeah. It's a great time to die.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, like this, Well, it's
Some Braveheart shit.
thinking about thinking about the relationship between yang and yin.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the 11th moon, yang it will eventually have a chance to kind of flicker and reimagine its recovery, thinking of like an embryo, thinking of like, but it's still like you need to guard it and maintain it.
Yeah.
If your physiology is such that these things are weak, those people who are weak in constitution or weak in their internal yang, should have gone south. Fortunately, in some places like in the Bay, it feels like the South right now. It feels pretty warm, but it's still the case that, because chi is not the weather, climate, climate is not weather. Much in the same way, the available chi is not necessarily related to the weather. They're not, it's not an equal thing. Mm-hmm. So the chi, you could be warm out, but still the chi may not actually still be lacking in certain things. So yes, without that support for maintaining life, and it's just yin, that sense of easy dispersion. That's the same principle. Don't sweat because that inner yang is easily just drawn out and dispersed into the environment. Unlike in summer, when there's a lot of yang qi available, you put your yang qi, your internal yang qi out, and it's circulated and supported and maybe returned, right? Mm-hmm. So you can match it. You can match the frequency. And during the propensity of yin, that spark in the candle, could easily, if it goes out, there's nothing to sustain it. There's nothing to relight it from the environment. So it's sort of an easy time to slip out.
Yep. Okay. Do you have any? Wrap it up. Do you have any things that you would like to, like, if you were to just like to walk up to a baby that just learned English and you're just like, hey, or like a child, right? And the child's for some reason is just like super into Chinese astrology, and they're like, what should I do? Yeah. What should I do this year? We're coming up on, the kid comes up and just is like, hey, I know it's a double rat situation we're in.
What's going on?
Yeah. What'd you tell
what's
them?
the pith? I mean, I'm going to go with don't shit yourself.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's the that's the good gem right there.
You know what I'd tell?
Meaning in the sense of like, don't fool yourself.
Yeah.
Like, the hypocrisy that we carry and the need to like uphold the light, I think is, in whatever way that we identify in that way, is, it doesn't serve you. Like you should be able to be comfortable with the darkness, like to actually really embrace it. I think one of my offerings, like several weeks ago, I said like, go ahead and fall, and trust that there's actually a net there. Yeah. And like, I think that's something that we have a difficulty with. And when it comes to yin, yin is perceived as like evil, darkness. Yeah. It's your mother. Yeah. It's like, it's the fact that like you're tired and you can put your head in her lap. I mean, let's go with that. Okay. I think that's actually more, I think that's more apropos and actually accurate to our experience as human beings.
Mm-hmm. This is a very profound moment. Like if we look at it fooling ourselves and we look at, whatever, we're adults now. It's a choice. Like fooling yourself is a choice. Like my rule is I tell everyone, if you're justifying it, you're slightly outside of your integrity, right? And in this editing world, if I'm like, yeah, but like that term, like when you hear yeah, but come out of your mouth, or, but I really, like when you hear that means you're trying to bend your integrity to some sort of maybe weakness, maybe you're confronting a fear. So it could be like you pushing yourself. Yeah, but I need to, it's like, I remember like.
Exactly. And confronting your fear along those lines. I'm not sitting here saying that like everybody who does that is wrong.
Right.
Like, no. Yeah. Like we all do it. In fact, like we actually, when we talked about the monkey moon, remember we said this, we all need to remember that we're just pretending. Like, and like, I think that right now it's the recognition that yes, you've been pretending. Yeah. And like, now is the time not to shit yourself. Yeah. And like, recognize it, like, hello, like, we've been pretending for so long and being asked to kind of scale back. And now, it's true. There's and this plays in with the sort of more unconscious motivations of winter, which is the water element of like, not, I don't know why, I just don't feel comfortable in my skin, like I'm just agitated, or all of these things sort of have a root either by our own conditioning, our propensity to be conditioned, given by sort of ancestral influences. So I'm not, I'm definitely not the one to say like people need to judge themselves for fooling themselves at all. But that's the cost of being a human being. It's work, you know. And so these are one of the times of like really, you know, owning that time in the darkness. Really.
How about? I was reading the other day, and it's funny because like earlier this year I had ants, and then they just went away. But it was kind of like in this moment where
they do that. I've noticed that.
Yeah,
ants would be like maybe, and then they're gone.
Yeah,
like,
and they're gone. Right.
What happened?
Yeah, they broke up with me. Right. And it's like, this party's lame. And
yeah, they got a whiff of something. They're like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're like, that garbage can was full of that. And anyways,
what?
so
do you realize that's not seasonal eating?
So the ants show up, but then like the other day I was in here and these little mice run under the door, and I was like, oh shit. And then I got them out, and then I had to wage a war on these mice for a minute because I found a bunch of them.
Because if you see one, there's 20.
Yeah, and I have, you know, gaps this big underneath my door. Like the mice don't have to like squeeze under anything. They could like stand up on their hind legs and just run in. Yeah, they could, you know. So they did that, and so I waged a war on the mice. Didn't really wage a war, but then I looked it up and I was just reading, and then something happened where I came across some sort of shamanistic kind of thing on animal medicines, and so I read up on mouse medicine, right? And it was, and it's funny because all my meditations have been about the trivial and have been about seeing the small little things, and also about the year of the rat, like little bites, and not focusing on anything big, because if you have your north, everything is moving that way anyway, so it doesn't matter. And so don't focus on that. It's like people are like, well, I don't want to, you know, but I don't want to hurt anyone. And you're like, you don't want to hurt anyone anyway. Stop mentioning that. But if you keep mentioning it, you probably might want to hurt people more than you think. And so when I was reading about it, it was about the trivial, and it was about like when mice show up in your home, it's because you're not going down to the basics of just like, you know, constantly making sure that everything is put in its place. It's not fun for the mouse, right? There's no more hiding spots. So it's very profound.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Like, actually brings forward the notion. That's what you just said about like everything in its place. That is the nature of the rat's perseverance. It's a necessary response. It is a time of survival. Rat chi is a time of survival. It is, I mean, in more ancient calendars, the like December 21st, the beginning of solstice, that's the end of the year, you know. And so, but the new astrological year, that's the end of the calendar year. New astrological year isn't for, so there's a gap, you know. You realize you got to get, okay, you know, like spring's coming, but like I got to get there first. And so this is the need, this is the definition of perseverance. Is it like, okay, you know, rationing, as we said in the beginning, and like persevering means that I attend to all the small things, because the small things are basically what's going to keep me alive. Yeah. Do I have enough food? You know, like, what is it? Is it not spoiled? How do I keep it? Like, all the sort of chi kind of attention to detail, it stems from this kind of fundamental quality of survival that we find in this time of year. And so, if I mean, that should pretty much fill your time doing that, you know. So if you've got big plans, like you're not giving your attention where it needs to be, which is in the little things, like you say.
Yeah, that was the mice. It's like it really showed, because I did that situational mindfulness course, and there's an exercise in there called roll call, right? And it's basically you just look around and you just point to everything. Like there's a microphone, camera, computer, there's a picture there, this, that. And I'm literally just taking a second to like acknowledge everything in the room, and then see like right now, boom, I'm looking right now at a jar that I'd moved from that room to this room. And I was actually, it sat right there, but it was supposed to be in transit all the way upstairs. So that's been white noise to me. And now by that roll call, I just saw the things that I don't ever notice anymore because they're just white noise. And the mouse energy, the rat energy, it made me look under the bed, look under the stove, pull the fridge out, make sure, it made me just, like just go through just like they would.
Right.
And it made me go, oh yeah, I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to organize this area. My tools have been over here. And so it's a blessing, and it's an idea. And that was a very cool little like check-in by seeing these little, and since I've done that, they haven't been around because they're like, you did your thing.
So you don't give them any gaps to to come in.
And it's like,
and it's a feng shui condition.
Yeah.
It's a feng shui exercise. Like feng shui is not just about your living space.
Right.
It's not just about, it's also your worldview and, your relationships, all these different kinds of check-ins that you can do on all that. Yeah. It's the time for those sorts of maintenance. When we drop into that kind of fundamental space. Yeah. Run along the bottom of the pool. Like, what do you pick up? What do you notice? Like, this is the time in which like you're sort of collecting your environment, and perhaps, with an intention to eventually sort of imagine, the way forward. Yeah. But like this is the tunnel time.
Anything else you'd like to add to the beautiful people of the Total BS Wellness world?
I'm like, I'm just really, it's such a privilege to, and we say this every time, but like, it's such a privilege to be here and to be part of this kind of collection of like really amazing folks that you brought in. And it's like, I'm so glad that you've given so much energy to this project.
It's growing too. Like
I can see it,
it's growing.
It's really amazing. And, bringing all the little pieces and stuff. So, I'm just really glad to be part of it.
Yeah. Happy you are part of it. It's good to be able to, in this world of, it's like influencers, they're always looking for the next shit show of a corporation to give them something. But I was like, no. Let's start looking for like, because everyone's like, hey, try this object that was just given to me by China. But I want to be like, hey, look at this person that I believe in, that they're doing something interesting, that they have wisdom. Support them. Like people should get a reading from you. People should go to Alice Lorraine and buy her products and
check
like,
that out.
They're better than what you're going. I'm sorry, like if you go to Sacred Chocolate and buy his chocolate, it's better than what you know. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really funny. Like these guys are so good. And so it's like, it's a pleasure to be able to like support, people that have been in my life for, we've known each other for like 20 years.
I know, like, it's crazy. I'm so grateful. Super
man.
Fun.
All right, dude.
Well, I love you so much. And,
you too, man. Scott.
Yes.
Let me do my thing.
Focus.
Hold on. Actually, you know what? We're going to do it together. So I'm going to say like, follow, subscribe. And then I'm going to say you're listening to
Total BS Wellness.
Yeah, because if you don't show up at practice, it's all BS anyway.
All BS. Yeah.
Because if you don't, and this is no shit, guys. Cool.
Don't shit yourself.
And
practice.
Remember, shitting yourself is a choice. Take responsibility for your life. Awesome, man. All right, dude. See ya. Bye.
Ciao. Bye.